The harsh snap of the hangman's rope cut through the morning air as it tightened, then suddenly slackened. Theodora Lawson felt herself falling, expecting the crushing embrace of death, but instead met the hard Wyoming dirt beneath her knees. Through tear-blurred vision, she looked up to see a tall figure silhouetted against the rising sun, his knife still raised from where he'd severed her makeshift noose. "That ain't no way for a lady to greet the day," the stranger said, his voice deep and graveled like the wagon trails that cut through the territory. "Not when there's still living to be done." Theodora couldn't speak, her throat raw from both the rope and her sobs. The year was 1876, and she'd lost everything: her family to typhoid, her small homestead to debt, and finally her will to continue in this harsh, unforgiving land. "Why?" she finally managed, her voice barely audible over the rustling prairie grass. "Why would you stop me?" The man holstered his knife and crouched down to her level. His face came into focus, weathered but kind, with eyes the color of the summer sky and a jawline strong enough to withstand the western winds. He couldn't have been more than 30. "Name's Adam Irwin," he said, ignoring her question. "Got a ranch about 10 miles west of here, and I reckon whatever brought you to this tree ain't something that can't be fixed." Theodora looked away, ashamed. "You don't know anything about me. I know you're still breathing, and that's a start." He stood up, dusting off his worn leather chaps. "Come live with me instead. Got plenty of room, and my sister just moved east with her husband. Could use some help around the place." "I'm not looking for charity," Theodora said, though she had nothing but the clothes on her back and the rope now lying useless in the dirt. "Ain't offering charity, madam. Offering a job and a roof." Adam extended his hand. "Your choice. But seems to me if you were ready to leave this world behind, you might as well try a different part of it first." Theodora stared at his outstretched hand. The morning sun caught the gold of his hair beneath his wide-brimmed hat, and something stirred inside her, not hope exactly, but perhaps its distant cousin. "I don't even know you," she said. "Name's Adam Irwin, like I said. Rancher. Not a saint, not a devil. Just a man who don't think the world should lose another good soul today." His hand remained steady. "What's your name?" "Theodora. Theodora Lawson." "Well, Miss Lawson, what'll it be? A new start? Or should I ride on and leave you to your business?" Theodora looked back at the tree, its gnarled branches suddenly sinister in the morning light. What did she have to lose that she hadn't already been willing to forfeit? "I can cook," she said finally. And so, a smile broke across Adam's face, transforming it entirely. "That's more than I can do, so we're already better off." He helped her to her feet. "My horse is over yonder. Hope you don't mind sharing a saddle until we can get you your own." As they rode across the open prairie, Theodora clung to this stranger's waist, wondering if she'd made yet another terrible mistake. But the rhythmic movement of the horse beneath them and the solid warmth of the man before her lulled her into an unexpected calm. For the first time in months, she wasn't thinking about dying. She was simply breathing, existing, moving forward. The Irwin Ranch appeared on the horizon after a few hours' ride, a modest spread with a sturdy 2-story house, a large barn, and several outbuildings. A handful of ranch hands were visible in the distance, working with cattle in the pastures. "It's not much," Adam said as they approached, "but it's paid for, and the land's good." "It's more than I've seen in a long time," Theodora replied honestly. Adam helped her down from the horse, his hands lingering at her waist a moment longer than necessary. "I'll show you to Martha's old room, my sister's. Then I'll introduce you to Mrs. Daniels. She helps with the cooking when we've got a full house of hands, but she's getting on in years. She'll be glad for your help." The room was simple but clean, with a real bed that made Theodora's eyes well with tears. She couldn't remember the last time she'd slept somewhere safe. "I'll leave you to get settled," Adam said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. "Dinner's at 6. Don't worry about helping today, just rest." When he left, Theodora sat on the edge of the bed, running her hands over the patchwork quilt. She noticed a small photograph on the bedside table, a family portrait showing a younger Adam, a woman who must have been Martha, and an older couple, presumably their parents. She picked it up, studying Adam's face. Even then, he had kind eyes. What kind of man cuts down a hanging rope and offers a home to the stranger at the end of it? Either the best of men or the worst, she thought, and she wasn't sure yet which Adam Irwin might be. The days that followed fell into an easy rhythm. Theodora helped Mrs. Daniels with the cooking and took over most of the mending for the ranch. The older woman was indeed grateful for the help, her arthritic hands making fine needlework increasingly difficult. "That Adam," Mrs. Daniels said one afternoon as they prepared supper for the hands. "Always picking up strays." Theodora's hands stilled over the dough she was kneading. "Strays? Oh, don't take offense, dear. It's his way. Got half a dozen hands here that no other rancher would hire. Tommy with his missing arm. Old Jessup who can barely see but knows cattle better than any man alive. Even that Cheyenne boy, Running Fox, when tensions were still high after the war." She patted Theodora's hand with flour-covered fingers. "He sees worth where others don't. It's a gift. And a risk," Theodora added quietly. Mrs. Daniels nodded. "Life out here is nothing but risk, child. But Adam's got good instincts. He saw something in you." Theodora wasn't sure what that might be. She felt hollow, a shell of the person she'd once been. But each day that passed at the Irwin Ranch filled a small corner of that emptiness. The simple routine, the honest work, the way Adam always thanked her for the meals with a gentle smile that reached his eyes, these things anchored her to the world in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. She saw little of Adam during the days. Spring was a busy time on a cattle ranch, with calving season in full swing and preparations for the summer drive beginning. But in the evenings, he would often sit on the porch, and sometimes Theodora would join him, the two of them watching the sunset in companionable silence. One such evening, about 2 weeks after her arrival, Adam finally asked the question she'd been dreading. "What brought you to that tree, Theodora?" She considered deflecting or simply walking away, but he deserved some truth from her, this man who had saved her life. "My family died last winter. Typhoid took my parents and my younger brother within a week of each other." The words felt distant, as though she were telling someone else's story. "I tried to keep our homestead going, but I'm not built for farming. The bank took everything when I couldn't make the payments." Adam nodded slowly. "And there was no one else? No family? None that would claim me?" She twisted her hands in her lap. "My father was not well liked. He had a temper, especially when he drank. We moved a lot." "I'm sorry," Adam said, and the simple sincerity in his voice nearly broke her again. "I couldn't see the point anymore," she continued, "of struggling, of waking up each day to more loss, more hunger, more fear." She looked at him directly. "Have you ever felt that way?" Adam was quiet for a long moment, his eyes on the distant mountains turning purple in the fading light. "After my folks died, yes. Pa got thrown from his horse, broke his neck. Ma followed 6 months later. Doctor called it heart failure, but Martha always said it was heartbreak." He rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "I was 23, suddenly responsible for a 17-year-old sister and a ranch I barely knew how to run." "What kept you going?" "Martha, at first. Couldn't leave her alone. Then it was the hands who depended on me for their livelihood. Then it was just life, I suppose. The rhythm of it. The small victories." He looked at her with those clear blue eyes. "Found purpose in helping others find theirs. Is that what I am? Another project?" Theodora hadn't meant the words to come out so sharply. Adam didn't flinch. "You're not a project, Theodora. You're a person who needed help, same as I once did." "And who helped you?" "Old Jessup, believe it or not. He was my pa's foreman. Could have taken the ranch right out from under me. I was green as spring grass. Instead, he taught me everything he knew." Adam smiled at the memory. "Sometimes all it takes is one person believing in you." Theodora didn't know what to say to that. The idea that someone might believe in her seemed foreign after so long feeling worthless. The conversation shifted to lighter topics: the new colts in the pasture, the upcoming town social, Mrs. Daniels' legendary apple pie. But something had changed between them, a tentative bridge built over the chasm of their separate sufferings. That night, Theodora slept without nightmares for the first time in months. Spring blossomed into early summer, and with it came Theodora's gradual awakening. She found herself looking forward to mornings, to the smell of coffee brewing and the sound of the ranch coming alive around her. She took over most of the cooking duties as Mrs. Daniels' arthritis worsened, and discovered a satisfaction in feeding the hard-working men who always cleaned their plates and offered genuine thanks. Adam began teaching her to ride, starting with an old, gentle mare named Daisy. A woman in these parts needs to know her way around a horse, he explained as he adjusted the stirrups for her. Their lessons became a highlight of Theodora's weak Sunday afternoons when the ranch work slowed and Adam had time to spare. He was a patient teacher, never rushing her or showing frustration when she struggled. During one such lesson in late June, they rode farther than usual to a small creek that cut through the northern edge of the property. The day was warm, the wildflowers in full bloom across the prairie. "This is my favorite spot on the whole ranch," Adam said as they dismounted to let the horses drink. "My pa used to bring me fishing here." Theodora watched him as he knelt by the water, his profile strong against the endless blue sky. In the months since that terrible morning, she'd come to know Adam Irwin as a fair employer, a respected rancher, and, increasingly, a friend. But something else had been growing too, something that frightened and exhilarated her in equal measure. "Thank you," she said suddenly. Adam looked up. "For what?" "For cutting me down that day. For bringing me here." She swallowed hard. "For saving my life." He stood, wiping his hands on his jeans. "You've been saving it yourself every day since, Theodora. All I did was give you a chance." "You gave me more than that," she said quietly. Something shifted in Adam's expression, a softening around his eyes. He took a step toward her, then seemed to think better of it. "We should head back. Storm's coming." Theodora looked up, noticing for the first time the dark clouds gathering on the western horizon. They rode back faster than they'd come, racing the weather, and reached the barn just as the first fat raindrops began to fall. Inside, the air was close and warm, smelling of hay and horses. Adam helped Theodora dismount, his hands strong at her waist. This time, he didn't immediately let go. "Theodora," he said, his voice low, "I've been wanting to ask you something." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Yes. The Independence Day social is next week in town. Would you? That is, I was hoping you might accompany me." It wasn't what she'd been expecting, but the formal invitation brought a flush to her cheeks nonetheless. "As your housekeeper?" Adam's brow furrowed. "No, as my guest. As yourself." He cleared his throat. "Unless you'd rather not." "I'd like that," she said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. "Very much." His smile was worth every moment of uncertainty she'd endured. "Good. That's good." The town of Clearwater was small but lively, especially on Independence Day. American flags hung from every building along the main street, and a band played patriotic tunes in the town square. It seemed the entire county had turned out for the celebration. Ranchers and their families, shopkeepers, miners from the hills, and even a few Shoshone from the nearby reservation, though they kept mostly to themselves at the edges of the gathering. Theodora had worried about what to wear, having arrived at the ranch with only the clothes on her back. But Martha had left behind several dresses that Mrs. Daniels helped alter to fit Theodora's slimmer frame. She chose a blue calico with white trim, modest but prettier than anything she'd owned in years. When she came downstairs, Adam was waiting in his Sunday best clean black trousers, a crisp white shirt, and a vest that brought out the blue of his eyes. He stared at her for a long moment before finding his voice. "You look beautiful, Theodora." She ducked her head and used to compliments. "Thank you. You're quite handsome yourself." The drive to town was filled with a new kind of tension, charged with possibility. Adam pointed out landmarks and told stories about the area, but Theodora found herself watching his hands on the reins, the way the sun caught in his hair, the curve of his smile when he glanced her way. In town, Adam seemed to know everyone, introducing Theodora as Miss Lawson, who's been helping out at the ranch. Some of the older women exchanged knowing looks that made Theodora blush, but everyone was welcoming. "Adam Irwin, as I live and breathe," a booming voice called from across the square. A portly man in an expensive suit approached, flanked by a severe-looking woman and a pretty young blonde. "Finally decided to join civilization, have you?" "Mayor Thompson." Adam greeted him with a respectful nod. "Mrs. Thompson, Miss Eliza, happy Independence Day to you. And who might this lovely lady be?" The mayor looked Theodora up and down with an assessing eye. "Theodora Lawson," she answered before Adam could, extending her hand. "I work at the Irwin Ranch." "Oh." Something in Mrs. Thompson's expression cooled. "How industrious of you, my dear." The blonde Eliza stepped forward with a too bright smile. "Adam, you promised me a dance at the spring social. but you never showed. You simply must make it up to me today. Adam shifted uncomfortably. Actually, Miss Eliza, I've promised the first dance to Miss Lawson. Eliza's smile faltered. Surely your employee wouldn't mind. Theodora felt suddenly out of place. Of course a man like Adam would have suitors, proper ladies from good families, not broken, suicidal strangers he'd rescued from nooses. I don't mind, she said quietly. But Adam's hand found the small of her back, warm and steady. I mind. If you'll excuse us, the dancing's about to begin. He guided her away from the Thompsons toward the wooden platform where couples were already assembling for the first dance. I'm sorry about that, he murmured. Eliza's father owns the bank. They've been pushing a match for years. She's very pretty, Theodora observed. She is, Adam agreed readily. Also shallow as a mud puddle after a light rain. His eyes met hers, serious now. I prefer women with depth. The music started before Theodora could respond, a lively Virginia reel that had everyone clapping and stomping. She hadn't danced in years, but found the joy of it returning quickly, especially with a partner as attentive as Adam. They moved together through several dances, until both were flushed and laughing. I need some punch, Theodora admitted after a particularly energetic polka, and perhaps a moment to catch my breath. Adam led her to the refreshment table, where they sipped sweet punch and watched the dancing continue. The sun was beginning to set, casting golden light across the town square. Are you enjoying yourself? Adam asked. More than I thought possible, Theodora answered honestly. I'd forgotten what it was like to simply be happy. Something in Adam's expression changed, a determination settling over his features. Come with me, he said, taking her hand. There's something I want to show you. He led her away from the crowd, down a side street to where the church stood, its white steeple reaching toward the darkening sky. Behind it was a small garden, fragrant with roses and lilacs. The minister's wife keeps this place, Adam explained. It's peaceful. They sat on a stone bench beneath a trellis of climbing roses. The sounds of the celebration were muted here, replaced by the gentle hum of evening insects and the distant call of a whippoorwill. Theodora, Adam began, his voice unexpectedly serious. There's something I need to say. She tensed, old fears rushing back. Was he going to ask her to leave? Had she overstayed her welcome? These past months, having you at the ranch, seeing you grow stronger each day. He took her hands in his. It's changed things. Changed me. Adam, please, let me finish. He took a deep breath. I know how we met wasn't conventional. I know you came to the ranch because you had nowhere else to go. But I need you to know that's not why I want you to stay. Her heart stuttered. You want me to stay? More than that. His eyes held hers, unflinching. I find myself thinking about you all the time when I'm out with the cattle, when I'm falling asleep at night, when I wake up in the morning. I watch for you at the window when I'm riding in. I listen for your voice in the house. Theodora couldn't breathe, couldn't move. I'm falling in love with you, Theodora Lawson, Adam said, the words simple and direct as the man himself. And I know it might be too soon, or you might not feel the same way, but she silenced him with a finger to his lips. I do, she whispered. Feel the same way. I've been afraid to admit it, even to myself. The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle at first, then deepening as Theodora responded, her hands finding their way to his shoulders, then the nape of his neck. When they finally parted, both breathless, the first fireworks were exploding over the town square, showering the night sky with sparks of red, white, and blue. Perfect timing, Adam murmured, still holding her close. They watched the fireworks from the garden, Adam's arm around Theodora's waist, her head resting on his shoulder. It felt right in a way nothing had for so long, like coming home to a place she'd never been before. The summer passed in a golden haze. Theodora's duties at the ranch remained the same, but everything else transformed. Adam courted her properly, bringing wildflowers from his rides, taking her on picnics by the creek, stealing kisses in the kitchen when Mrs. Daniels wasn't looking. The ranch hands teased them good-naturedly, and even Mrs. Daniels gave her blessing in her gruff way. About time that boy found someone to love, she said one evening as they prepared dinner. Been alone too long. We both have, Theodora replied softly. Not everything was easy. Theodora still had dark days when memories of her losses overwhelmed her, when the guilt of surviving, when her family hadn't weighed heavy on her soul. But Adam never pushed, never demanded more than she could give. He simply remained steady, a lighthouse in the storm of her grief. And there were external challenges too. The Thompsons and their ilk in town made it clear they didn't approve of the relationship. Rumors circulated about Theodora's past, some closer to the truth than she would have liked. Let them talk, Adam said when she worried about damaging his reputation. What matters is what's between us, not what's between their ears. In August, a drought hit the territory. Days stretched hot and cloudless, the creek dwindling to a trickle, the grass browning beneath the relentless sun. Adam worked longer hours, moving cattle to what little water remained, his worry etched in new lines around his eyes. If it doesn't rain soon, we'll lose half the herd, he confided to Theodora one night as they sat on the porch, hoping for a breeze that never came. She took his calloused hand in hers. You'll find a way. You always do. He squeezed her hand gratefully. Having you here makes even the worst problems seem manageable. As August turned to September with still no rain, Adam made a difficult decision. I need to drive some of the cattle north, to my cousin's land near the Bighorn River. There's water there, and he's offered grazing rights. Theodora felt a flicker of panic at the thought of him leaving. How long will you be gone? 2 weeks, maybe 3. He cupped her face in his hands. I'd ask you to come along, but it'll be rough going. I understand, she said, though her heart ached at the thought of the empty ranch without him. The night before he left, Adam asked Theodora to walk with him to the creek bed, now just a dusty trace of what had been. The setting sun painted the prairie in shades of amber and gold, beautiful despite the drought's devastation. I've been thinking, Adam said as they walked. About the future. What about it? Theodora asked, suddenly nervous. He stopped, turning to face her. I want you in mine. Not as my housekeeper. Not as my guest. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object that glinted in the fading light, a ring. Simple but elegant, a single pearl set in gold. As my wife. Theodora's hands flew to her mouth. I know it hasn't been that long, Adam continued, his voice steady despite the uncertainty in his eyes. But I've never been more sure of anything in my life. When I found you that day, I think some part of me knew even then. Tears filled Theodora's eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. Ask me, she whispered. Adam dropped to one knee, taking her hand in his. Theodora Lawson, will you marry me? Will you build a life with me, have a family with me, grow old with me? Yes, she said without hesitation, the word escaping on a half laugh, half sob. Yes to all of it. He slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, then stood and gathered her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that left her breathless. When they finally separated, the first stars were appearing in the darkening sky. When I get back, Adam promised, we'll set a date. I was thinking October, before the winter sets in. Nothing fancy, just us, a preacher, and whoever you want there. Just us would be enough, Theodora said, meaning it. The 2 weeks of Adam's absence stretched interminably. Theodora threw herself into ranch work, helping the remaining hands with whatever needed doing, keeping the house in order, preparing for Adam's return. She wrote letters to Martha, Adam's sister, sharing the news of their engagement and receiving a warm response welcoming her to the family. On the 15th day, dark clouds finally gathered on the horizon. By nightfall, rain was falling in sheets, thunder rolling across the plains. Theodora stood on the covered porch, watching lightning illuminate the landscape, breathing in the scent of wet earth and renewal. He'll be back soon, old Jessup said, joining her on the porch. Adam's got good instincts. He'll have seen the weather coming and started for home. But 3 more days passed with no sign of Adam or the cattle drive. The rain continued, turning the ranch yard to mud, the roads to rivers. Worry gnawed at Theodora, keeping her awake at night, distracted during the day. On the morning of the 4th day, she was in the kitchen kneading bread dough with more force than necessary when she heard shouts from outside. Wiping her hands on her apron, she rushed to the door just as Tommy burst in, soaking wet and breathless. They're back, coming up the north road. Theodora didn't bother with a coat or hat, running out into the rain toward the road. Through the curtain of water, She could make out riders approaching a dozen men, driving 100 or more head of cattle. At the front, tall and straight in the saddle despite what must have been an exhausting journey, was Adam. He saw her before she reached him, swinging down from his horse and striding through the mud to meet her. They came together like the storm around them, powerful, elemental, inevitable. His arms wrapped around her, lifting her off her feet despite his weariness. "You're soaked through," he murmured into her hair. "So are you." She laughed, not caring about the rain or the mud or the curious eyes of the returning hands. Later, when Adam had changed into dry clothes and eaten the hot meal Theodora prepared, he told the story of their journey, the difficult drive north, the cousins' generous welcome, and the treacherous return through the sudden deluge. "Lost a few head to the rising creek," he admitted. "But most made it, and so did all the men. I'm counting it as a victory." "A costly one," Theodora observed, noticing the new lines of fatigue in his face, the way he winced slightly when he moved his right shoulder. "Worth it." His hand found hers across the table, his thumb brushing over the pearl ring. "The ranch will survive. And now we can think about our future." They were married on a clear October morning, the drought a memory, the land green again after the September rains. The ceremony was small, held in the Clearwater Church with Reverend Palmer officiating. Martha returned from the east with her husband to stand as witness, and Mrs. Daniels wept openly throughout the service. Even the Thompsons attended, though Mrs. Thompson's smile remained fixed and false. Eliza was noticeably absent. "Don't mind them," Martha whispered to Theodora before the ceremony. "They're just sore because Adam chose love over money. He always was the smart one in the family." Theodora wore a new dress of cream-colored silk that Martha had helped her select, with sprigs of wildflowers in her hair instead of a veil. Adam couldn't take his eyes off her as she walked down the aisle on Jessup's arm, the old foreman having offered to give her away in her father's absence. The vows were traditional, but spoken with such feeling that many in the small congregation dabbed at their eyes. When the Reverend pronounced them man and wife, Adam's kiss was both tender and possessive, a promise of the life they would build together. The celebration afterward was held at the ranch, with trestle tables set up in the yard and lanterns hanging from the trees. There was dancing and feasting, laughter, and a few happy tears. As the sun began to set, Adam pulled Theodora aside from the festivities. "Happy?" he asked, his arms encircling her waist. "More than I ever thought possible," she answered truthfully. "A year ago, I couldn't imagine living another day. Now I can't wait to see what tomorrow brings." "I have something for you," Adam said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small package wrapped in tissue paper. A wedding gift. Theodora unwrapped it carefully to reveal a delicate silver locket. Inside was a tiny painting of the Irwin Ranch house. "So no matter where life takes us," Adam explained, "you'll always have home close to your heart." Theodora felt tears threatening again. "It's perfect. Help me put it on." As Adam fastened the chain around her neck, his fingers brushing the sensitive skin there, she felt a wave of gratitude so profound it nearly overwhelmed her. For this man, this day, this life she never expected to have. "I love you, Adam Irwin," she said, turning in his arms. "For saving me in every way a person can be saved." "I love you, Theodora Irwin," he replied, his smile warming her to her core. "And I plan to remind you of that every day for the rest of our lives." As they rejoined the celebration, hand in hand, Theodora caught sight of the old oak tree at the edge of the property, the very one where Adam had proposed. Its branches stretched toward the sky, strong and vital despite the summer's drought, just as she had grown strong again after her darkest time. Life in the Wyoming territory would never be easy. There would be hard winters and dry summers, good years and lean ones. But looking at Adam, at the home and family they would build together, Theodora knew with absolute certainty that she wanted to face it all, wanted to live with all her heart. And to think it had all begun with a cut rope and an offer spoken in the early morning light. "Live with me instead."